This FedGov Today program is sponsored by EY. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, getting to the root of the government's automation problem, the data avalanche ahead for warfighters, and the cloud breakthrough at the Army. CIO Leonel Garciga is here on FedGov Today with Francis Rose. First, though, the General Services Administration and the Defense Department are both emphasizing buying commercial solutions. Government leaders say that's generating new interest in how commercial sectors are solving problems that are similar to the ones agencies face. George Kaczmarski is Principal for Government and Public Sector at EY. George, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you being here. You wrote first about adopting a process-first mindset, and you wrote, don't automate a mess. I imagine the reason that you wrote it is because you've seen it. Why is that a challenge, and how does that manifest itself?
Yeah, Francis, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. We have seen a lot of investment automation in the commercial space for about a decade. There was an early adoption of that in financial services, who are always at the leading edge of technology adoption. And we saw a little bit of an unbridled enthusiasm to get into technology and this automation. And arguably, we were trying to automate for automation's sake. What we saw as a consequence is that we sub-optimized the automation opportunity. We would take a technology and try to screw it in to whatever task for the sake of just saying we automated 2 hours of a person's time. Mm-hmm. What we found over time, and the banks found over time, is that if we took a step back and thought about our processes holistically and why they existed in the first place, and started to reimagine them and re-engineer them and challenge them, that we saw a lot more value once we applied automation. So the takeaway for that was that we automate as the last part of the mile.
Another phrase that you used in this piece is expanding the technology aperture of automation tools. I picture a whole landscape opening up, not just kind of a linear transition the way that I picture it in a typical digital transformation. Is that what you're going for there?
Yeah, it was interesting. The same kind of concept. In that eagerness to adopt technology, we had that Python syndrome. Like, to the Python developer, everything looked like a Python problem. Mm-hmm. And so we would run in and try to put that. And instead what we found is, if you started looking at processes and you started looking at the patterns that people perform manually, there are different technologies that fit those patterns better. And so what we needed to do was look and say, hey, here's a suite of automation technologies we can apply to processes. We just need to pick the right one for the right pattern. And then the debate came, well, how do we best decide? How do we arbitrate that decision? How do we solution it? And you can put things in place for that. But what we found were people were taking a technology-first approach, not a process-first approach, and we weren't thinking about what's the best way to automate.
You're using a couple of concepts here that are similar to what I've seen in other transformations that federal agencies have undergone. Cybersecurity, the discussion was, don't bolt on a cybersecurity solution, make it secure from the beginning. Right. In the digital modernization effort that a lot of agencies undertook starting 5, 6, 7 years ago, the conversation revolved around looking at the business process first, and then looking at the digital transformation. Are the solutions, are the best practices the same as they were for those types of transformations too?
They are. They are a little harder because we aren't taking digital transformations typically that I can mold the process around. This, I'm bringing a tool set that's like, hey, here's Excel. Right? And so I need to be able to think and really commit to that process reimagination, that re-engineering. And if I do that right, the automation piece is easy.
We have about a minute left, and you write about thinking about day one, year one, and year 5.
Right.
Which of those is the hardest for folks to think about as they're doing the analysis and then doing the actual implementation?
I think year 5 is by far hardest because we as humans don't think that far ahead. Mm-hmm. But that's actually the most important part, because we need to fast forward and imagine what it means to live with thousands of automations we don't have today that are interacting with hundreds of systems and tens of thousands of stakeholders. And if we don't think about the consequences of the processes, functions, jobs we need to put in place for that, and the governance, then we are going to create unnecessary technical debt or process debt.
About 30 seconds left, not just automations that don't exist today that you're thinking about 5 years from now, but other kinds of technology that don't even exist today.
That's
Artificial intelligence was not a thing people talked about five years ago.
That's right.
How does one anticipate what may or may not be coming down the line like that?
Well, I think that part of it is as you go through this automation journey, you establish your automation capability, innovation has to be part of that and part of the remit of that function.
George, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks
Appreciate
for joining me today. You can read more about automation on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the data avalanche ahead for warfighters. Army CIO Leonel Garciga is here when FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems, streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation, we drive it. Maximus.
Medicare, Medicaid services, all those type of things. I think a lot of those processes can be automated with agents. And this is what the commercial industry has been doing for a long time. And I think from an infrastructure perspective, you have to work with companies that have done this. And I think that's the biggest thing, because there's a lot of imposters, if you will, to some extent, around a lot of this different workloads. And so from an infrastructure perspective, the big takeaway is making sure that you're working with companies that are building these pipelines day in and day out, and they'll be able to solve your problem the first time, not make it an iterative process.
Welcome back. The Army's reviewing results now from its data summit last month. The Army says its data community is, quote, at the frontier of a new battle space. Leonel Garciga is the Chief Information Officer of the Army. His office co-hosted the summit with AFCEA's Kansas City chapter. Leo, welcome back to the program. It's good to have you on again. What did you hope to learn from the data summit, and what have you learned about data so far from it?
Well, Francis, thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here again to have a good chat with you about the data summit. So, second data summit we've had in the Army. It's our second annual one. Great turnout. We had about a 980% increase in the number of folks that attended. And our goal really this year was to assess where are we in the story, right? So as we continue to mature across the Army in our kind of data transformation, this really was the first opportunity where we've had some reps and some sets on some big data initiatives, and we really gotten functional folks across the entire Army to really get knee deep into their data sets and where they can maximize leveraging that data. So this year was really important to us. Focus a lot on C2 and what that looks like moving forward as we look at major Army efforts like Next Generation C2, is how can we really lay that foundation for data and really start to assess across our functional areas what that health and maturity is. We've seen a lot of great work on the business side. So when we talk about our business systems and what we're doing in that space, very mature data space, lots of folks working it. They've been working it for years, slowly trying to creep that in throughout the rest of the Army and across. So I think this has been the first time that we've been able to get the community at large, which included kind of positions that didn't exist, 3-4 years ago. We have a lot of folks now in commands with chief data officers that are sitting there, and they're really kind of wrangling inside all the commands and the functional areas, their space. So we're really excited that this has been our first opportunity to get the community after some maturing together to really look at what the next steps are going to be.
What is driving a 980% increase in people that care about data to the point where they want to spend a day of their lives discussing it with their peers?
Oh, that's such a great question. So a lot of things are driving that. So the first thing that's really pushing that hard right now is kind of a commitment that we've made to really push out more low-code, no-code platforms and really democratize the ability for folks to answer their own questions. The Army Data Platform, Vantage, has been very critical to that effort as we laid that platform out 3 years ago and really kind of democratized it out to the force. We've really seen folks take to it and move really fast to kind of take charge of their data to answer their own questions. And what that's done is, right, it's kind of given the ability for soldiers and civilians in our workforce to really move out. In fact, I'd say it's really interesting when you look at the metrics, almost holistically across the board and across every command. It's kind of like 80% of the folks using the platform are government and military folks. We have very few of our contract workforce actually sitting down there building stuff. It's mostly organic at this point. So we've made a commitment to make more of those platforms available. The other piece that's really helped is, we locally call it the automation or die memo, but really is this big push by the secretary to automate as much as possible. So we're on the very beginning of our journey right now. We're still in the collection phase of it, of really going throughout the Army and asking, hey, where do we have some opportunities to take these human-intensive processes and either automate them or add some AI ML to? And really that delivery of those low-code, no-code platforms has really accelerated that.
You've been pretty strident in your view that you should go for commercial platforms as much as you can, especially for artificial intelligence. How does that intersect with the work that you did at the Data Summit and the work overall that you're doing around data in the Army?
Oh, great question. So the Data Summit really informed where people were, right? Where our workforce was when it came to AI. Still very much, like we talk about, we're maturing in data. I think we're in a good place in that maturation process. I think when we look at AI ML, in November of last year, we made a commitment to get capability out. About 4 months ago, we introduced the Army Enterprise Large Language Model Workspace, and our intent was to make as many of the commercial models ubiquitously available and democratize out to the force and build really large guardrails and let folks run. So we've seen really a massive growth. We went, I think it was in less than 72 hours, we went from 0 folks on the platform to over 5,000 folks on the platform, and we're at like 19,000 right now. So we've seen that steady growth across the board. Lots of learning still, lots of training, but the Data Summit really was the first opportunity we had to talk, hey, where are these opportunities, right? Because some of it is low-code, no-code platforms help us automate, and the other piece was like, where can we use large language models, and which are the right ones for the tasks that we're looking? So I think the Data Summit really was a catalyst to get things moving for us in that direction.
Do you have a sense among the artificial intelligence use cases that people are exploring using the tools that you just talked about, how much of them are what people might categorize as tip of the spear, and how much of them are back office functions and so on to try to help you get a better handle on business processes and that type of thing?
So we're seeing a healthy mix, but really what we've seen a lot more of is a lot of back office work. Areas where folks can gain capacity, right, to do their mission, and within that space we have two kind of camps. We have kind of the novice camp where we're seeing people still learning, and they're using glorified search, for lack of a better term, right? It's like Search Plus with some agentic AI built in, and then the other side is a way more mature camp where we have folks that are actively using these models to write code to quickly spin up pilot projects to answer very difficult Army questions, and then they can either integrate into a low-code, no-code platform or integrate into one of our programs of record. So we're seeing kind of that space right there, still very much back office focused.
Do you have the resources and a strategy to move folks from those rookie users to the more veteran users over time?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So that's really what we're working on right now. I think this next step, the first step was, can we do enough data collection to understand what that path is even going to look like? I think we feel very comfortable right now that we're starting to get a good landscape. So over the next year and probably into fiscal year 26, a lot more investment on the training side. We're seeing less institutional type training, more ad hoc, kind of commercially available training to get folks moving. I think the bigger thing is going to be, as we plot out how we move from this kind of democratized, self-service, get to a certain point, that next phase is how do you make that big jump to the more mature kind of platforms that are out there.
I want to explore that when we come back, so stand by for a moment. You can read more about all those topics on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. More with Leonel Garciga when FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
You know, there are platforms that allow for application development based on visual design tools and pre-built components. So it's just much simpler the way that these low-code platforms come together from a development standpoint. You can take the pre-built components, you can pull them together in your development environment, and it's a much different way than how traditional programming languages are used for application development of old. And the result are several advantages that I think are noteworthy. First off, you can develop much quicker, and you can which drives much lower cost from a development standpoint. And then you can get to market much quicker. The key, I think, for the DoD, the other advantage I think about is really the creation of exceptional customer or soldier experiences that low-code, no-code platforms can provide. They allow for this very easy to follow process, self-guided path, I guess I'd say, through an application. And it's this super intuitive user interface that gets created based on the platforms that make them very easy to use.
And those analysts are actually providing feedback on the performance of those models so that we are always able to improve what they're doing and make sure that that improvement is benefiting the customers as well. The other way we approach that is we are creating forecasting models that are allowed to look at the various factors, both short and long term, whether that be economic, political, weather, governance, and we're able to understand when stability within a given area is increasing or decreasing. That actually helps our customers to get left of boom, right? And so they're able to make decisions in a calm space where they can think proactively rather than just be reactionary.
Welcome back. The Defense Information Systems Agency is preparing for the next generation of the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability contract. The Army instructed cloud consumers across the service recently to move all cloud buying to the contract. The Army CIO, Leonel Garciga, is back. Leo, why do you think it was necessary? Why did you think it was necessary to explicitly tell folks the way that you did, that if they're going to buy cloud, if they're going to use cloud, they need to do it through JWCC?
Yeah, it's a good question. So about 18 months ago, we made a very important decision in the Army. We had been going through a reseller. We had our own kind of contract. Not necessarily seeing the better buying power we expected on that, and some challenges as to ownership of accounts and things that we felt uncomfortable. So we made a fundamental decision to move to JWCC. We were working in split operations for a while, so we still had legacy contract plus JWCC. We've cleaned that up over the last 18 months, and as of, I think, 3 months ago now, we now are fully on JWCC. We are their largest customer by far. We are about 62% of all workloads there, so #1 shareholder. So we really wanted to get kind of things back in a box inside the Army, right? I think part of the challenge was we've been working split ops for a while. We're confusing the force. How do we codify that in a better way across the force? Break. On top of that, the other piece that was really helpful was great relationship with this and the DoD CIO team, and really letting us come in as a service and help them kind of massage the contract. As written originally, very much focused on 4th Estate. We had some challenges as one of the biggest service out there coming in for all of our needs. Great partners and kind of remodifying and putting it in a good place. And now we're in a place where we can really leverage it. I think the big thing to think about is first opportunity to get at scale across the department this idea of better purchasing power with the cloud providers. I think you can't beat all being there. Air Force is moving in the same direction, Navy's kind of moving in this direction. I think at the end of the day, really making sure that we get the best value for the taxpayer as we deploy cloud in the Army. What
do you anticipate the next generation looking like, or how could it change to suit the needs of the best customers so far of JWCC?
Oh, yeah. So we are heavily invested in our conversation with both the DISA team and the DoD CIO team on the next generation contract. We're hyper-focused right now on making sure that we can have the same experience that you have in the commercial space, especially around marketplace where vendors have already come with products ready to go. And then the other piece is this idea of how do you bring some of the SaaS providers in a more efficient way so we don't have to do a lot of contract actions to do it. Our big thing is going to be, can we maximize and streamline the approach to onboarding new customers and conversely onboarding new industry partners into the environment. And that's really where the focus is going to be moving forward.
One of the things that the cloud has enabled, in addition to what we talked about data and AI and so on, is the use of just a million different kinds of software applications, and one of the things that the department has struggled with for a long time is authorities to operate. You've gotten now to a continuous authority to operate environment. How did you get there, and what are the benefits that you expect to see as a result of that?
Slowly is how we got there. Right, so yeah, no, that's a great question. You know, it's been 24 months of a lot of labor with a lot of great folks to kind of get to where we are. Really focus on 4 critical areas. One was this idea of validating capabilities that are out there for software and saying, hey, look, this is what's in our inventory, this is what we're going to use. The next piece to that was really saying, if you're using those capabilities and you put them together, here's what a CI/CD pipeline looks like. And the last piece was, what's your ConOp, right? What's your concept of operation? How are you going to operate this, whether it be a command or a program? And really getting those 3 things in place. We got that done through policy and pushed that out. We've now farmed about 42 different efforts, right? And of those 42 different efforts, as of last week, 3 of them are officially in continuous ATO. And it's a smattering of capabilities, right? It's everything from stuff at a major command to an actual PEO. So still very much maturing in our journey to CATO, but I am happy to say that from where we were a year ago, which was like just policy formulation and what does this look like and bringing the community along, we do have 3 programs now that have a CATO. Just signed the last one yesterday.
Are you getting to a point where now you're going to see critical mass and you'll be able to replicate this process again and again, since you've it sounds like you've figured out the formula?
Yeah, I do believe so. I think where we have some maturity in our programs, we're going to see that happen very quickly. Something interesting that kind of fell out of the entire effort was a lot of folks were like wondering to rule them all. We decided that probably wasn't the answer. We said, hey, there's going to be some variety here, but we're finding that commands and programs are coming to that variety. So if they see someone that looks and smells similar to what they need, they're jumping on that. So it's shortening their timeline to get to a CATO. So as opposed to like kind of, hey, we'll build this all over again. So I think we're getting that critical mass right now. Still going to take a while. It takes some time. Contract changes, people change. There's a lot going on at the same time. But we're excited where we are.
Is the process that you undertook replicable in another service of the military or in the 4th Estate or in a civilian agency?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it peculiar to the Army because of whatever reason?
No, definitely. We were very much focused on being kind of vanilla about it in order to give us some ability to have diversity on what we were approving. So yeah, it can be used as a service. I think our bigger thing and our next step, which is a step I'm really excited about, is looking for industry partners who want to do this in a commercially operated, commercially owned environment. So that's kind of our next step. We have about 3 industry partners right now that are working with us to figure out how we do this in a COCO model. And that would really give the Army kind of a full suite of tools, right? Whether it be COCO or GOGO or kind of GOCO, the ability to have those capabilities available for use.
That speaks to a broader transition that we've kind of touched on in different parts of this conversation and that we talked about in the first part of this program today, and that is moving as much as you can where it's appropriate to commercial solutions. How do you make those determinations either on a macro level or on a micro level about where commercial works and where commercial doesn't work in the Army?
Yeah, and our strategy has been, and I've been very upfront about it, right? Commercial first, SaaS as much as possible, like we really embrace what's already working in the private sector and bring that in a smart way and rethink our processes, right? So there should be less customization, right? Logistics is logistics is logistics, right? We shouldn't be inventing our own way of doing that. So I think our big conversation right now is focusing folks first commercial, and not commercial only, because I mean there's areas where we do need to do some stuff behind the fence line. We've seen a good demand signal from our customers, though, and our customers are jumping on board. They're seeing the barrier to entry be very low when we go commercial. And I'm going to be honest, I think the big thing has been us as an Army and me as CIO putting out the message that says, hey, these are the approved platforms, these are approved low-code, no-code things, and making that just available, right, with no kind of person in the middle, has really pushed kind of the Army forward at looking at commercial being the first place to go.
And that strikes me as not just a solution to the tactical aspect of it, but to the cultural aspect of it too, to signal to people, not only is it okay to do things this way, we encourage you now to do these things in a different way. Is that a fair read on?
Oh, that's a great read. I think that those folks that really want to move fast are finding that the more commercial they go, the more SaaS they go, the faster they get from zero to hero, right?
We have about a minute left, and I want to go back to something that we talked about in the first part of this program. You said in the use of the artificial intelligence tools that we talked about that a vast majority of those folks were Army personnel, and a much smaller percentage were contractors. What do you want to do to perpetuate that, to continue to drive your Army personnel people to experiment, to try different tools, to take advantage of the cultural things that you're doing to change things, that kind of thing?
Yeah, my big thing is make as many of the tools available as we can in a safe place where folks can use them, and maximize the training opportunities out there. I think a big thing is not everyone's an expert. We got to get some hands-on keyboard, right? It's like learning to drive a car. You got to get in it first and start trying to drive. So I think our big thing is let's make capabilities available, and then over time we'll figure out where we have to tighten up guardrails, where we maybe have to make some enterprise level decisions, maybe shrink that pool down. But the big piece for me is, can we get capability in folks' hands so they can move out?
Leo, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate it for being back.
You can read more about all the topics that we covered on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in just a moment.
The other vendors will come and sell you a component of a zero trust framework. Then you'll have 10 other vendors come and sell you another 10. In some of the cases that we've run into, our partners and customers have over 30 different standalone products that they've had to try to stitch together to really comply to the zero trust framework. Luckily for us, we have a software platform that we built everything from ground up that does networking, zero trust network access, security, firewall, as well as many other things, CASB, DLP, all the components that you would require of zero trust, all in a single software stack. And you can put that stack everywhere you want. You can put it in the cloud if you have a cloud node, you can put it on your prem in a WAN node, or you can put it on a LAN if you have a switch. Now what that does is your perimeter is consistently secured with the same policy.
You have to show a little bit of the how, but not so much of the how that you give away the company store, it sounds like.
100%. I view it as akin to when commercially available satellite imagery came to market, right? It used to be super secret stuff. Hey, there's a satellite constellation. It can take pictures. The government can task it. When I was a Marine lieutenant, that was like some of the most secret stuff we had during the invasion of Iraq. Today, I could do that through Maxar or through another commercial satellite imagery company. And like for us at Flashpoint, that's our future.
Welcome back. In today's event spotlight, the ACT-IAC AI acquisition forums coming this week. You'll learn how to manage efficient, effective AI acquisition for the federal government according to guidance from the Office of Management and Budget. You'll meet government leaders from OMB, Interior, Energy, Justice, NASA, and more agencies. The forum's this Wednesday, July 23rd, at the Appian Conference Center in McLean, Virginia. You can read more about the forum and register at fedgovtoday.com/events. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. The Navy's Chief Data and AI Officer, Stuart Wagner, will be here. We'll see you then. I'm Francis Rose. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.